Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. We are going to cover Uday, and this is probably going to be the final showcase that I do for Uday for a very long time. I will still use her in different comps in the future as well, but this would be like the final showcase, so to speak. It is not really a showcase, this is just a review on how she has performed for me over the past, I don't know, 2 weeks or so. No, sorry, I had her at R6 about 1 week ago. So all in all, let's take a look at how Uday has performed thus far and where I'm going to place her in the current Esper ratings tier list or something like that, right? So somewhere where Uday would belong based on the numbers that I have in this video. Now, as always, we're going to start off with her strengths, followed by her weaknesses. So as for her strengths, she has a cooldown reset with only 3 turns of cooldown on that skill, which is very insanely powerful. Okay, just for comparison, Nusi has a 4 turns cooldown on her second skill. And of course, Nusi also pushes AP and gives a speed up buff and all that. A lot of good stuff over there, but in terms of just raw cooldown reset, Uday is amazing with just 3 turns. So if you give her the ocean set like I have on her right now, you're going to encounter many situations where you can reset her second skill very, very quickly. And part of it is also because she has hasty actions as part of her resonance. So whenever she has one of her skills on cooldown, her speed increases by 20, which is amazing. It's so freaking good, especially when you're using it together with ocean set, because that further compounds how effective your ocean set is going to be, right? This 35% is actually going to be a little bit more improved in the long run because you have more speed on your ocean set. So it is always a good idea to have a lot of speed when you're running the ocean set. Now, aside from that, she also has incredibly smart AI. Her AI follows that of Abigail, and she has a lot of strong supportive skills, right? So for example, her third skill has an attack up buff with two debuff cleansing as well. And her second skill, of course, it has the shield, a very, very thick shield, and the cooldown reset, and on top of that, she also has the absorb effect, which is very nice, especially when you want to protect one of your DPS espers. And for her first skill, she also has the speed down and the 20% AP gain whenever she attacks. So because of that, she generally performs really well with the Avatara set, which is why I feel like the Ocean Avatara is probably like the best for her. And part of it is also because her next strength is her low build requirements. So it's super easy for you to build her. She don't need accuracy at all. It's not important that you land her speed downs. So all you really need is just to invest into her speed and maybe a little bit of tankiness. And that is all. It is extremely easy for you to build her. So even if your Ocean and your Avatara sets are kind of weak, it is still very possible for you to build a very strong Uday. And for the rest of her strengths, she is extremely versatile. She's useful in many different content. And she also has the Anki abuse because she has an attack up buff on her third skill. So these are all of her strengths and she has no weaknesses. And now let's move on to the rest of the content that she strives in or does not strive in. So I'm going to compare her between R0 and R6 because all players are probably going to get her at R6 right now. But if you're not able to get her R6, then unfortunately, I apologize for your loss. Okay, so let's start off with the story and events. She is going to be really good there at R6. I'm just going to primarily focus more on R6 because I don't really think people care too much about her R0 status quo. So in story, you can reset your allies' cooldowns. That's like, oh my goodness, so freaking good, dude. You can reset a Pritzker and reapply a stun again, and if you have her on the ocean set, oh my goodness, bam, 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 bam. A lot of cooldown resets, a lot of stuns, a lot of control, DPS, whatever. Anything that you need is going to come from her reset on her second skill. That's what makes her so good. And that cooldown of just 3 turns, man. Oh my goodness, chef's kiss. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Okay, now moving on to Sonic Rift, she's not going to perform because she's a support. You don't need supports in Sonic Rift, you just need 1 Mona, that's all. Then moving on to Cube Miracle, I don't think she's really that necessary. You can just bring like any attack buffers. That's going to help you cleave everything at the start. So maybe not so good, so she's like average. Now in terms of Infernus, Flow Runner, Wind Striker, Shimmerer, she's relatively good in all of these content. Because when you move on to the boss wave, you could start off with your second skill to reset one of your DPS espers. And if you're able to build a smart team, then you can reset maybe your defense breaker, right? So let's say you're leading with the Black Twin, for example. You're going to reset him, and he's going to land his defense break at the start in the boss wave, which makes her, I think, a really good choice. And now the reason why I rank her a little bit high for Wind Striker is because Wind Striker lands poisons, and her third skill actually cleanses 2 debuffs on your team, which is really helpful, especially for like early gamers. Now moving on to Ritual Miracles, I've tested her in all the Ritual Miracles and I must say that her performance is extremely good in all these content. So for example for Chronos, the attack up buff is so necessary for speedrunning, that is one thing. But the debuff removal is probably not that important unless you get stunned and you're taking a little bit too many turns, then yes, this might come in handy to get rid of defense breaks and the stuns. But for the most part, when she goes straight into her second skill, give your, I don't know, your Xiao Yin an extra shield and then absorb, for example, reset the cooldown, or maybe this goes onto the Ollie. Oh my goodness, bam, more DPS as well. Then moving on to APEP, this is also a no-brainer. She has cleansing on her third skill with an attack up buff. This is like really, really good. And for Fafnir, she is above average if you're using her with the right Esper. So like the showcase that I did, I used her with Elaine and that worked out really well for me. So if you're not going to be using her in the right setup, then she's probably not going to perform. But I think in most cases, the fact that she can reset cooldowns is very, very effective, even in Fafnir as well. Now moving on to the Desolate lens, from my experiences thus far, I do feel like she performs a lot better in Shadowfire than the other two content. And the reason for that is because for players without Alice, she's still going to be really good. Like she's going to be like the next best alternative. But if you have an Alice, then Alice is definitely going to overtake her in Shadowstream and Shadowgale. And the difference is quite big because Alice does bring the speed up buff and Alice also has the ally assist effect. So Alice is still superior to her and far superior, so it is not possible for me to give her a 5 rating over here. Or rather, should I say, it is quite evident that your scoring might not be as good as if, let's say, you run an Alice, for example. The scoring difference is actually really quite big. And getting an EX++ is really quite difficult if you're using a Uday. Now moving on to the Sentinel hunt, I don't think she's going to be good in most of them except for maybe the Dark Starlord. Now the reason why I feel like she's good in the Dark Starlord is because she has an attack up buff and she removes debuffs from your team. So the cleansing is very important because there is buff block that one of the followers can apply onto your team and I think misread up as well. So one big issue in Dark Starlord is that most players use immunity to protect yourselves from the buff blocker and the misread up. But by providing immunity buff onto your team, that allows Dark Starlord to steal it from you and therefore provide the immunity back to the Dark Starlord, which is a big problem. So cleansing with attack up buff is a very nice combination to have on her kit. But the reason why I didn't rate her a little bit higher is because she does not have any healing and her shields will be reduced in efficacy as the battle progresses, because when you get more of that red debuff on your teammates, not only do they get reduced healing, they also get reduced shielding as well. So I think in terms of ally support, she don't bring enough in the Dark Starlord. Now moving on to the tower content, we have the Spatial Tower. I think she's amazing, just the same as the story content. If you can reset the specific ally that you need, let's say more healing, or like you have a Clara for example, you reset the Clara pushes your team's AP, give your team immunity, more healing, a lot of good stuff. Or if you need to double up your stuns again, or I don't know, reapply certain debuffs and all that kind of good stuff, slow debuffs, all of that, strips, whatever you name it, right, she is going to be there for you. So in Spatial Tower, Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower, she is amazing and probably one of the best supports that you can have. Now as for Calamity Island, obviously she's a water type Esper and there isn't a water type Calamity Island, therefore she is not going to be good in the Calamity Island. And finally, we end off with PvP. Now, a lot of this is just speculation, but from what I can understand and from whatever that I have experienced, I have only tested her out in holo battles, and I do find her very powerful over there. So the shielding effect, the cooldown reset, the attack up buff, and maybe the cleansing as well, these are all really good supports to have. But of course, this really depends on your lineup as well, like I said. So if you have a JJ, she's always going to automatically, cause her AI, right? She's always going to automatically protect your dead JJ, because your JJ has like 1 HP, right? And by shielding him this way, you can also reset the JJ, which means that he's gonna go back into his demon mode after he dies again, which is like, oh my goodness. So depends on your setup, she can be very powerful, right? So like we have talked about using her with Ollie, for example, she is amazing with Ollie. So your Ollie can re-protect your ally over and over and over again, and that makes her really, really good. And I'm tempted to put her at a 5 out of 5 here for all the PvP content because of just how useful she is, but her AI can go crazy sometimes and she might shield the Espers that you do not want to shield. So like for example, she might protect Everett, right? If she does protect Everett, oh my goodness, your team lacks the damage mitigation on Everett's third skill. Or like if let's say she uses it on Ahmed instead, Ahmed cannot have his cooldowns reset, so it's gonna be wasted over there. So it really depends on the setup that you have, which is why I don't think she's a 5 out of 5 because she is quite limited to the Espers that you can bring to your PvP setup. Or rather, I should say, if you want to make full use of her, then you will not be able to enjoy the benefits of all the meta Espers right now. There are many meta Espers that do not necessarily work hand in hand with her. So like for example, Nusi as well. You can reset her Meteor, but you cannot reset Nusi's second skill, something like that. So you won't make full use of Uday's kit in many different PvP comps. But that's not to say that she sucks, because she's amazing as well. We've talked about this so many times. Okay, my bad. I just realized my head was blocking. So here you go. Holo Battle is the last one over here. So all in all, I do feel like she's an Esper that deserves the double S tier. I have never given an Esper such a high rating before, but I feel like she truly deserves it. She is one of the best support Espers right now in terms of her kit. Like the 3 turns on her second skill is very, very game breaking, and it's amazing to have, especially if you do not have any other support Espers. Like for example, you do not have a Nusi, for example, you can always use her for the cooldown reset function, which makes content clearing super easy. And just because she's so versatile and she works in so many different content, she definitely deserves a very high tier. She definitely sits very well in the double S tier. Alright, so that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you agree or disagree with my current review on her? But if you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Derek Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.